Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Say hello in the chat if you would like. I'm going to go ahead and check all of the different settings to make sure we are not going to be blocked from having a party today. Go ahead as you're logging in, introduce yourself in the chat. I'm going to have my director of product and design, Oliver, in the chat, answering questions. I'm also going to unleash him on the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and update the Q&A so that attendees can upvote and comment on questions. I'm also going to allow anonymous questions in case you'd like one, or to ask a question anonymously. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just get started in the next minute. My goal is really to keep this to 20 minutes. I have never been concise in my language. So let's be real, it's probably going to be in that 25 to 30 minute range, but my goal is to get you out of here, sooner rather than later. I am going to have notes up, so I won't be looking at the chat and the Q&A. I'm going to let my director of product entirely work in the chat and the Q&A feature. Ask your questions in Q&A, and then chat I will also have Oliver on top of. So welcome. Like I said, introduce yourself in the chat. So good to see everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. This is supposed to be just very informational. Maybe in the chat, if you want to share how long you've been using Packback, what semester is this for you coming in this fall? Be very curious to hear. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, hey, Oliver. Hello. I already said that you'd be in charge of the chat, so thank you for all your work today. We're going to go ahead and zoom through some product updates. So I'm not going to read from slides, but what I will say is I want to spend about 10 to 15 minutes on micro mini demos and product updates. I'm going to focus on four core areas of work. One of them is actually not new. I just don't think it's celebrated enough, so I'm going to reshare, and that is advanced AI features. And then I'm going to spend the last 5 to 10 minutes talking about our upcoming engagement insights beta that you can very much be a part of if you'd like. So we're going to start with content library. So this was released a while ago, but we've been iterating and working on this product. So the goal is to allow educators like y'all to import and clone great content. That includes guideposts, polls, prompts, rubrics, and share great contents with others. So you might be an educator who spent a lot of time building a community and you're proud of it and you want other teachers to be able to use it. You might be an instructional designer or maybe in charge of a course that TAs teach and you need to be able to really have control over what's happening in that community. But the goal and the impact is less time creating content, more time engaging with your students and teaching. I will say that my teaching coach, when I was a teacher, I used to say, good teachers borrow, great teachers steal. And in order to be able to steal from other teachers, you also have to share for other teachers. So let me go ahead and just show you where this is in your community. So I'm in a Packback community that I actually got from the content library from a fellow named Keith. Content library is right here. You'll be able to see this. You can search by keyword. You can explore templates by topic. If you have access, depending on your institution, you might see content under Packback Partners. If you don't see anything, it just means your institution is not opted into a certain content partnership. We have K-12 templates. We have higher ed templates. You can go ahead and click in. You can see. You can clone assignments into your community, or you can use an entire template. You can go ahead and expand details and see. Just an FYI, if you already have an existing community, you're just going to plunk your community ID in right there, and it'll go ahead and import into your community. To find your community ID, here's what you're going to do. While you're in your community, you click course details, template ID. That's your community ID. All right, that's a helpful thing to know, by the way, because sometimes we'll ask you for community ID and that's where you find it. It's also the last digits here and your URL. So fun fact. So again, you can clone individual assignments, templates. When you do clone in assignments, they will come in with all the detail less due dates. So you still have to go in and assign due dates if you want due dates. They're all just going to be open and due date lists upon cloning. If you want to share, and I encourage you to share, when you're in your community, you publish and share course. You choose if you want it public or unlisted. If you want it unlisted, that would be if you're an instructional designer or, a master course teacher of record. You can share the link and let that share at your will. Template details are going to include things like what's a description, what's a title, and then customize assignments. You don't actually have to share all assignments. Let's say you've created 14 polls, but you only want to share 10. You can choose. You can choose there. So import, share, have a good time, party. Let's talk about some work we did this summer to update our risk and uniqueness algorithms related to Packback's originality tooling. What we wanted to do is increase the quality of these algorithms, the transparency of these algorithms, and then flexibility for educators. So first and foremost, we have AI risk reporting. And note, I'm not saying AI detection because I think that's a loaded term. We do risk reporting. I mean, what is the likelihood that content was generated by AI? What's the risk? Not what's the determinist, conclusion here. You can toggle this on and off at the assignment level. So let me show you this for writing. I'm going to go ahead and go to my courses, hold. So in my discussion assignments, you can go ahead and manage assignments, edit, and you can turn off AI writing detection. You could do the same thing for your writing assignments in Packback Writing. Go ahead, manage assignment, edit, and you're going to see that same ability to go ahead and toggle on and off AI risk. All right, so that's the first thing I want to share. Second, that you may not know, and this is highly recommended you keep this on, is you can allow for students to see their originality fingerprint before submission. There is so much research and data that shows us if we are transparent about academic integrity tooling with our students, and we actually give them access to the tools to use themselves, not only do we see a decreased amount of dishonesty cases and violations, but we see improved student outcomes because students are actually doing their own work. So definitely recommend you allow them to take this little pre-flight check. Again, you're going to see that in writing assignments, toggled on and off right here. Let me just show you what this looks like in action. Here is a deep dive that I was writing. I lifted content directly from the internet. What's an AI data center? I ran that originality fingerprint as a student. And what you're going to see is 0% uniqueness. Well, why? Because I lifted it from the interwebs. Review, I can see here's where it matched from. I can go ahead and pull down. I can see a side-by-side comparison as a student. A lot of students accidentally violate academic integrity workflows, or they don't quote properly, they don't cite properly. So let's give them the chance to actually pre-submission work through any originality flag, edit their work, and then submit to you. All right, so again, I highly recommend you keep this on. Last thing I want to say about AI risk and overall originality, uniqueness being kind of old school plagiarism detection, we've improved our AI risk model. So this is really technical work, and I was once a chemistry and physics teacher, but alas, even I can't really comprehend a lot of the work that happened this summer. But what I want to do is call out two changes we made. First was, how do we catch the most egregious cases? So here's an example. We have implemented an algorithm where all it does is it looks for the most common phrases communicated by an LLM when prompted and not communicated by a human being when writing academic writing papers. So sure, here's A, or as a large language model, I cannot. So we'll go ahead and flag those as likelihood of AI generated content. Now the other is catch the nuance. Now I want to use a big caveat here. We're implementing a new algorithm in beta. We're very much keeping an eye on it, but we are aware that students might lift content from the internet, put it through a paraphraser, submit it on Packback. So we've created an algorithm that wants to find cases of those, and again, flag those proactively for a student. We can say, hey, it looks like you might have used a paraphraser here. We have to be highly sensitive with this. We do not want to false flag students, but it is one of those nuanced ways that students are not doing their own work. We want students to be doing their own work. So I wanted to highlight that AI risk model that we've created. All right, revisions. I think I have 3 more updates. Revisions is one of them. So we had a lot of instructors who wanted a feedback rich, iterative writing process in deep dives. What they were doing was assigning 3 deep dives for one final writing product or essay because they wanted to be able to grade each and provide feedback along the way. With revisions, you no longer have to do this. You can actually have multiple evaluations, multiple feedback cycles in one writing assignment, either deep dives or originality. So it's really hard to demo live because it requires student view, professor view. So I'm going to go ahead and play a video. Oliver, I just want you to give me a physical thumbs up if you can hear when I play this video.
Whether a student misunderstood the prompt, asks for some feedback prior to the deadline, or you wish to give them a chance to improve their writing before a grade is finalized, Packback has you covered with our revisions feature within writing assignments. Anytime you grade a student's deep dive or originality review, you can mark that submission for revision, an action which reopens the assignment to the student so that they may incorporate your feedback and try again for a new grade. Let me show you how this works. In your community, you'll grade a writing assignment by locating it, entering it, and going to the submissions table. If you would like to reopen an assignment for revision, you will do this by starting a new evaluation, editing an existing evaluation, or returning to a draft. Here, you'll go through the rubric, provide a preliminary grade, and of course, feedback, so students know how to improve their work. Before you submit, you can check this box to allow the student to revise their work. When they resubmit, you'll get a chance to evaluate their new version. You can also select a new due date just for that student, so that they may have adequate time to amend their submission. Once you submit and release the evaluation, the student will receive a notification in the platform and an email letting them know that they have a chance to revise their work. Also, the assignment will reappear under their open assignments until the new due date has passed. The student will start the revision, act on your suggestions while drafting, and submit. You then grade this new version. The new evaluation will be the student's score for the assignment, and if previously synced, it will update in your learning management system. If the writing still requires more attention, you can reopen the assignment again, continuing a formative feedback loop for as long as you feel is appropriate. For more information on revisions and strategies for managing your Packback community, visit help.packback.co.
This has really been the project of the summer. It requires a lot of technical work, a lot of research. It's going to continually get better. What I will say is because this is such a behemoth of a project, if you have any questions, definitely utilize our help center. At help, I think maybe Oliver, maybe put in a link to the help center. We have so many different articles and videos on how to use revisions to the best of your ability. Again, I think it's really great when you have specific students you want to give a second shot to, maybe their first effort, or you just generally allow revisions in your grading cycle. So a great, you asked, we listened sort of moment over at Packback. I'm going to very quickly celebrate the upgrade in our integrations of deep linking. So the goal is to allow educators to link LMS assignments directly to Packback assignments. You might right now have integration in your community, in your course at your institution, but it might be students click on an assignment in the LMS and they're taken to the Packback homepage, either in the LMS or in a new tab. What this allows us to do is actually go one level deeper and link assignment and assignment. All right. So the goal is that we reduce clicks, we reduce friction, we make it more seamless. So an example is, let's say you have a midterm paper. In the past, you would go ahead and create an assignment in your LMS. Midterm paper, students would click on it and they'd go to the homepage, and then they'd have to navigate to that deep dive or that to get to that paper. Now they're going to be taken straight to that assignment. I have a video of this in Canvas that I'm going to show you. If you use another LMS, I apologize, but hopefully it's pretty similar. So I'm going to go ahead and create an assignment in Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and link Packback. And what it's going to do, it's going to ask me, what assignment do you want to link this to? I'm going to go ahead and click midterm paper, select and save. A bunch of details are going to import back now into the LMS. The title of the assignment, the points, it's going to go ahead and do that for me. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And what you're going to see then is other details import back too, including the start date of the assignment, the end date of the assignment. This is great. It does depend on your LMS how much detail flows back through, depends on settings. But what you'll see is that it has that start and end date there, which is great because Canvas, I know a lot of folks really want Packback assignments to show up in the calendar, and it doesn't always do that perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and show this screen. These are all of the institutions in which we have turned on deep linking. Some institutions we've been able to test personally, some we haven't. It's in alphabetical order. If your institution is on the screen and you have no idea what deep linking is, reach out to help@packback.co. We will give you the proper documents you need to go ahead and deep link if you're interested. If your institution is not on this list, reach out to help@packback.co. There is some limitation to how far we could go with deep linking. So if your institution does not have an up-to-date LMS, it needs to be on 1.3. We can't deep link. It's required. If they're on 1.1, it's out of our control. Also, sometimes your LMS administrator might want to do more testing. They might want to wait, 6 months from now or a year from now to enable that functionality. So there's only so much in our control, but if your LMS administrator is keen, we will turn this on for you. All right, I'm gonna change the page. So hopefully you found your institution or you didn't find your institution and you have your action item. Last thing before I talk about the beautiful Engagement Insights project we have going this fall, I want to remind everyone of advanced AI features. So this has actually been around for a while. I just feel like we don't talk about it enough. And the goal here is allow for educators to confidently wield the power of large language models without sacrificing integrity, student authenticity, and learning. The way I think about it is AI, the way it's supposed to be used by education. So LLMs are really powerful machines. They're most often used to generate content, right? When we think about ChatGPT, but they can also be used for other things like, hey, I'm about to send this email. If you were the receiver of it, would you be offended? And it could say, hey, you should change this word to that, right? So there are ways to use a large language model to do a job that's not necessarily generate content. That's what we wanted to do with advanced AI features. There are two main jobs of advanced AI features in Packback. You control whether this is on or off. So again, I'm going to go ahead into a Packback community and just show you where to find this setting. If you're an educator, you're going to go to settings and edit community details. You will see it down here, advanced settings here. Again, there are only two core jobs of advanced AI features. I'm a former high school teacher. I highly recommend you keep this on. First is access to a chat assistant, which is a highly refined LLM powered experience. We work with a lot of K-12 partners who have tried endlessly to game our chat experience and have failed. Now, I'm not going to say everyone's going to fail forever. I don't like to speak in absolutes, but for reals, that is the feedback we have received. So I'm going to give you an example of what our chat looks like in writing. I'm writing a paper about an AI data center. What our chat is going to do is basically ask questions the same way a writing tutor might do at the writing center. So, hey, I hear you want help getting started. What's the topic of your essay? Environmental impact of AI. Okay, sounds like you have a thought-provoking topic. What do you already know? Any examples of research in your essay? Not much other than some stuff I saw on Instagram about downstream effects of data centers. All right, good to know you've identified something. Do you have some scholarly articles? Do you need some help here? I said, where should I even go for scholarly articles? I don't know. I'm a kid. Start by using academic databases, JSTOR, Google Scholar, or library database. And it says, hey, do you need more help? So it's really supposed to be a thought partner in the writing process and not writing on behalf of a student. If you don't want students to have this chat experience, you can of course turn that off. You have control. The other thing that I'll note is that we have some pro feedback in deep dives and questions that is indeed powered by an LLM. For example, feedback if the tone of what you're writing does not match the writing assignment type. So as an educator, if you create a deep dive and you say, hey, this should be an academic paper or it should be a business case study, we will go ahead and give feedback there on the tone. And then also things like detecting components of the essay. If we know it's a writing assignment that should have a thesis and we can't find it, we'll say, hey, we can't find your thesis. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us on up here. Again, I said I was going to try to do this in 20 minutes, but I know myself. I am a chatty Kathy. Well, chatty Kelsey. I'm going to go ahead and introduce y'all to Engagement Insights. Hopefully this isn't the first time you're hearing about this. What is Engagement Insights? It's a fall project we have. There is a beta offering at no added cost to add to any community that already has a Packback writing embedded. But let's talk about why we're doing this. I actually showed this slide, was it last week or 2 weeks ago at a webinar? So much of the conversation since the dawn of ChatGPT has been around cheating. And last week, somebody in the chat said, is it even really cheating anymore? And I think that's a really good question. The reality of the situation is, I don't believe at the end of the day, the royal we, educators, are scared of cheating. I think we're terrified that students are going to stop thinking. At least I am. That's what I'm scared of, that we are going to stop thinking because we've delegated and offloaded too much to artificial intelligence. We're seeing it for the first time in research, the cognitive effects of overuse of generative AI. The MIT study is something that's been cited a lot. What I get so excited to talk about is how we prevent cognitive offloading, not how we better police our students. The analogy I use, and I've never played a sport in my life. I was a competitive dancer. Um, but if I was a football team manager, coach, and I had a team that was entirely defensive, all just defensive folks, fellas, what I would find is that the other team never scored. I'd be great at making sure nobody else won, right? But I also would never progress. I would not progress. If our MO is detection, police, surveillance, and I'm using kind of these like violent words, but I hope you stay with me. We're just never going to progress. We're never going to win. And the winning is when students learn. When they engage in the productive struggle, when they have aha moments. If we balance defense and offense, then apparently we have a good football team. I wouldn't know because I'm a Chicago fan and the Bears are ruining everyone's lives. So that's what we're excited to do. And engagement insights is a direct answer to this question and a direct answer to the call to prevent cognitive offloading, but it's also a natural evolution to what we already care about and do at Packback, which is prepare students to be incredible, independent, curious, passionate, critical thinkers and communicators. What Engagement Insights aims to do is scaffold, motivate, encourage, and celebrate the process because in 2025, the product just isn't telling enough about whether or not a student is learning and struggling and persevering. What will be happening is that Engagement Insights is a three-part or a three-phased feature set. And I'm gonna talk through those. That's gonna be released this fall throughout the semester. So if you opt into the beta, you will get access to them in real time. It's gonna start in Packback writing. So if you're a deep dive user, you're gonna see that. We will bring a lot of the core process back into discussions, but we're gonna start with writing. So I'm going to talk about what those phases of work are. So first is insights. We're going to deliver insights on the writing, engagement, and thought process that a student goes through when creating a deep dive assignment to the educator. We're also going to give it to students pre-submission, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But first is writing process insights. Um, Second is planning. We're going to have students engage in a scaffolded but autonomous planning process so we can give students confidence and clarity before they even take digital pen to digital paper. Lastly is reflection. So provide opportunities for students to actually reflect on the entire writing process. And that's actually a artifact in the assignment itself is the reflection they had before submission. And again, this goes back to focusing on the process, not just the product. I want to briefly talk about the research and pedagogy that really inspired this, and it's something called Zimmerman's model of self-regulated learning. So what this model is a very much beloved model that's backed by research that shows when this model is integrated into the writing process, there are improvements in not just the writing product, but the writer themselves. We're improving the writer. It has three components: forethought, which is that planning process, things like setting goals and analyzing what I'm asked to do. So like engaging in dialogue with a rubric. Think about it like that, or a prompt. Performance or implementing monitoring. So applying strategies and self-monitoring progress. That's part of this as well. And then self-reflection and evaluating. So reviewing the outcomes. Did I do what I said I was going to do? What does my writing process look like? Can I reflect on points where I got stuck and where I had aha moments? So this is the inspiration for what we're doing is a self-regulated learning, which again, research has shown is proven to increase writer skills. So let me just show you some early designs. I'm going to say caveat, this might not be what it looks like in reality. It might be different. We're doing user interviews with professors, with teachers, with students to make sure that we have the exact right approach and design. But the goal here is to bolster planning activities without sacrificing autonomy. So I, as a student, when I go to start a deep dive, I can go ahead and choose kind of how I want to plan my writing. Do I want a more structured approach to planning and supported approach, or do I just want to go ahead and hit the road? they choose, which I think is great as we're thinking about differentiation techniques as well, of some students might need more support. I recommend that you as an educator are a little bit explicit with students about what type of planning process you recommend for them, whether it's wholesale or you want to give that individual one-on-one feedback. So that's an example of what that might look like. And I'm not showing what it looks like to pick the pathway and go through it just for the sake of time. Now let's talk about insights. So what we wanted to do was provide writing insights to faculty members without making it seem like it's a surveillance technique. What we wanted to do is it's a true instructional strategy. When I used to teach chemistry, AP chemistry, I had my students write lab reports, and based off of uh, the results, at the end of the day, when I finished grading, I would always go back and reteach a portion of the lab report. I had to reteach writing a procedure about 47 times in my class. This is supposed to be the data that arms you with the information you need to understand what do I need to go back and reteach. Um, so this is what it looks like to get a writing report or an insight, a process report. You can see how much time are they spending on different portions of writing, planning, drafting, revising, reflecting. How many sessions did it take them to complete the assignment? Time per session. But what's really cool and amazing is that students are going to see this before they submit. Students are going to see this before they submit. And the other thing they're going to do is they're going to write a comment on their report before they submit. That's part of this that we're really excited about. So let's say that this is the student-facing report. They're going to write a comment. So they might say, hey, it took me a really long time to plan for this because I was having trouble finding credible research. I'd love to have more conversations about finding credible research. So not only are you going to see what they did, but you're going to see their reflection on what they did. I think it's really important that students have a voice if we are going to show and celebrate their process. They get to be part of the showing and the celebrating of the process. All right, the beta. I know that was very fast and furious. So if you are if you want to, you want in, you like this. This sounds good to you. It aligns with your pedagogy. We have a beta, and I'll go ahead and show you. I'll share this link in the chat. Um, it's an early access program. Like I said, these 3 phases of work are going to be released throughout the fall. So you can go ahead and have access to these features as they're released. There's no added cost to it. So if your institution adopts Packback for you and it's procured centrally, you have access to this. You can opt into the beta. If you are going ahead and using a community this fall that has Packback writing in it, you'll have access to this. There's no added fee to it. If you want to add writing, reach out to a Packback team member, but it's opt-in. It's not opt-out. So you choose to be a part of it. You're going to gain access to features as they release. You're going to have access to our product team to give feedback, to engage in user interviews. Because we're starting in writing, you just have to start with Packback writing. We'll import this back to questions once we know more. And there's no added cost. So let me go ahead and throw this in the chat. Unless Oliver has already done it. Nope, I'm going to go ahead and do it. If you want to opt in, we absolutely recommend it. And if you opt in and you want to opt back out, you could do that too. But I don't see any of this as harmful or throw on a spanner in the works for you. So please opt in if you're curious. If you have more questions, you can always reach out to your Packback person. I'm sure you know who they are. I'm sure it's like a Carrie or a Ryan. You know exactly who I'm talking about. So that is all I have for today. I kept it under 30 minutes, which was my goal. I'm very proud of myself today. We have to celebrate the wins, am I right? You took 30 minutes out of your day to learn more about what we've been cooking this summer. This is just what we were able to achieve in a 3 to 4 month span. So just imagine what Packback's going to look and feel like a year from now, how much more feedback we can act on from our user base. So thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate the time. I appreciate your partnership. I appreciate your support. Have a wonderful remainder of your summer and good luck getting back to school this fall. We wish you the best. Bye, everybody.